Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Trahern, broadcasting live from Minnesota. I'm the chair of the Green Party, co-chair of the Green Party of the United States and chair of the Minnesota Green Party. We're honored to introduce to you today Annamie Paul. Annamie is a Canadian politician, activist, and lawyer who has served as the leader of the Green Party of Canada since October 3rd, 2020. She is the first Black Canadian and first Black Jewish woman to be elected leader of a federal party in Canada. Paul was the founder and executive director of the Canadian Center for Political Leadership from 2001 to 2005 and has worked in civic engagement and international affairs positions, including in the political affairs in Canada's mission to the European Union. And without further ado, I introduce to you Annamie Paul.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I am here on the unceded territories of the Algonquin. That is in Ottawa. That is also territories known as Ottawa. And it is such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It gives me an opportunity to virtually travel. And it also reminds me of how I am part of a global green family. I am part of a global green movement, and that we're watching out for each other. We're paying attention to what happens to each other in different parts of the world. And that is an extremely comforting thing. So thank you very much for this invitation. And I know that this is billed as a Juneteenth event. Juneteenth has just passed, but I want to wish everyone a happy retroactive Juneteenth. And I hope that everyone found a way to celebrate and to learn more about the history behind Juneteenth. And I will say that it's particularly interesting to me and important to me to say that because we have been working for a very long time here in Canada to have our Emancipation Day recognized, which is August 1st, 1834. That was the day that that slavery of Indigenous peoples and also Black people in Canada was abolished. And while our members of Parliament unanimously voted to ask the government to make it a national holiday, we're still not there yet. And we still have a lot of work to do to help people know that history. I can tell you as someone growing up here in Canada, in a family that was quite aware, you know, I grew up in an activist family. I did not learn about Emancipation Day until I was an adult. And my sister, who has named her production company, Emancipation Arts, in recognition of Emancipation Day, also didn't learn about it until she was an adult. So congratulations to you. That's, you know, one more milestone, one way in which we're acknowledging the history, one way that we're ensuring that it's not erased, and that we acknowledge the ongoing impact and legacy of it. And we'll get there soon, I hope. So in terms of me, just very briefly, yes, I am the leader of the Green Party of Canada. I have been in this role now for about 8 months. It is a tremendous honor to represent Green Party members across Canada who have been working and continue to work really hard on behalf of people in Canada, really hard on behalf of people in their community, especially at a time like this, especially given the pandemic that we continue to live through and all that it has changed, all of the loss and sacrifice that it has caused. And so they elected me, and I ran on a slogan of diversity, democracy, and daring. We know that within our party, the way to ensure that we are truly diverse and inclusive, that we have dismantled all of the systemic barriers that exist within our party, is to acknowledge them first, and then to make a commitment to systematically dismantle them. And so that is something that I've been very committed to. And it's certainly something that that my background, that my experience tells me is important, because we know that it really is. You have seen in the United States, you have one of the most, I guess, the most diverse Congress that you've ever had. You have people being elected across the United States who have never seen themselves represented in politics. And the same is slowly but truly happening here as well. And we know that that's important because we know that diverse representation matters. It matters in terms of the issues that get discussed, in terms of the policies that get into the political discourse. It matters in terms of the quality of the laws that we make and how well they represent the people they were designed for, how sustainable they ultimately are. It matters in terms of our engagement with our democracy, in terms of our engagement with our institutions. It is a bedrock that we must build a strong, socially cohesive society on. And so it's something that is worth every single second of the work. As someone who is out here on my own at the moment, I'm the only woman to lead a party, to be elected to lead a party that has seats in our National Assembly. And, I'm a lot of other firsts as well. Being out here is an honor and a privilege. It is also a responsibility. The other day, the only Black woman in Parliament, in the previous Parliament, the one that just came before our last election, she was interviewed about her experience in one of our national newspapers. And what she said is, the system tries to grind you away. And her experience, she was interviewed about her experience because one of our members of our National Assembly, an Inuit woman from the High North, an Indigenous woman, left and made similar points. And it is true that in many respects, the system, one that wasn't designed with people like me in mind, one that wasn't in any way one that took us into consideration, that expected us to even be present in these institutions, really does try to grind you away. And so I'm aware of that. And what I want to do is make sure that it grinds a little less hard on the next person like me that comes along. Because I know that there are eyes on me, there are eyes on my leadership. And the question is, can people like her, can people like me, can people like us, can we make it? Is there a place for us? Is our contribution going to be valued? One way that we are trying to answer that question with yes, 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 at least in terms of our party, is through our Time to Run campaign. And this is something that was very much inspired by similar initiatives down in the States. I was very inspired by Ilhan Omar's campaign and by the way that she and others in her cohort were identified and supported in their runs. And that is what we're trying to do here in Canada as well. We're trying to say to people that are the leaders of the future, that will help to bring us to the place that we need to get to as soon as possible. Those people who really should see themselves right at the heart of our political institutions, right at the heart of politics, that we see you and we value you, and your place is in politics. Your place is there making a difference for your communities every single day. And we are going to help to clear a path for you. And, in Canadian terms, it's a lot of people, not so much in American terms, but we have had hundreds of people apply through this program to be candidates for the Green Party of Canada just in a few months. People who are responding to that call, who are excited about being part of a new generation of politics, of politicians, and also a new culture in politics, which is really so sorely needed. In terms of our party and in terms of the months ahead, we may be heading into an election soon, a national election, in which case we are going to be bringing some clear messages to people across the country. And we've already started to do that about what they could have if they had a stronger green voice sitting in our National Assembly, about what it could mean for their communities, about what it could mean for truly turning the corner on our warming planet and on our greenhouse gas emissions, what it could mean in terms of creating a more equal place that we all are able to live in with dignity. And so we have been talking about a green recovery. We are so excited about the possibilities of a green recovery. We see many countries, including your own, beginning to wake up to that possibility, beginning to invest in it, beginning to make decisions that are consistent with it. And that is something that we want Canadians to get excited about too, about the way that we can accelerate our transition, our progress towards a net zero economy as we exit the transition, as we create the good, safe, well-paying, sustainable jobs of the future. The green recovery is absolutely one of the best opportunities that we have to do it, and to recognize that our planet has finite resources, to recognize that we have little time left in order to bend the curve on our greenhouse gas emissions. And this is a way for us to accomplish that. In our case, I know that we are considered to have a more complete social safety net than the United States. But what I would say is that we are certainly falling behind. And we recognize that during the pandemic, when so many people would have been left with nothing at all in terms of protection, had we not created a whole new suite of emergency benefits. This is the time for us to finish the unfinished work of completing our social safety net. We are the only country that has Medicare, but does not have universal pharmacare. It is becoming almost as expensive in Canada to study as a student as it is in the United States, and we don't have the same kind of financial aid programs. It's time for tuition-free post-secondary education. We also want to see a guaranteed livable income, because I'm sure that you're seeing, and certainly we have seen, that you can never create a group of programs, a patchwork group of programs that is going to do the job that a universal basic income, we call it a guaranteed livable income, could do. People are different and their circumstances are different, and the stigma attached to the way that we support people needs to end. And the only way that that happens is through some form of a universal basic income that ensures that whatever your circumstances, there is a net underneath you that will catch you when you need it, and that will allow you to plan your life in a dignified way. And then reconciliation and forging a just society. We here in Canada are in National Indigenous History Month. I hope everyone will take the opportunity in Canada to learn more about our hosts on the lands that we live in. We discovered 215 children just recently at one of our Indian residential schools, 215. And this is just scratching the surface in terms of those who were lost through that colonial and genocidal system of residential schools. And so we have a tremendous amount of work to do towards reconciliation, towards true nation-to-nation engagement, towards recognizing and respecting Indigenous self-determination and sovereignty. And we also have a lot of work to do in dismantling systemic racism within our institutions. As someone who has that as part of the lived reality of the work that she does, I recognize the need. It is always close by me. And we truly need to continue to commit to the work, much of which, again, is unfinished in dismantling systemic racism within our institutions. So this is the ambition that we have, and we believe that this ambition is well-founded, because we are inspired by people in our country every day and what they have done to help their communities, to help their neighbors, to step into the breach whenever they saw it during this pandemic moment. So we know we have it in us. We know that people are ready to embrace a way of living, a way of being with each other that recognizes and respects the ways that we are connected, that recognizes and respects that we are responsible for each other, and that we are all in this together. I'm so excited about that, and I'm really excited to work with the Green family all over the world in supporting each other and in helping each other to meet these objectives and having bigger voices wherever we can on behalf of people wherever they are. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you, and I think that there's going to be some questions for me. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us in the States, and talking to your Green family here in America. On the panel with us, we have candidate for St. Paul Public School Board. She's endorsed by the Minnesota Green Party Black Caucus, is Jennifer McPherson. And then we have the chair of
Never heard
the
of
Harris County Greens in Texas, Bernadine Williams, and they're just coming off a accelerated Juneteenth down there where it all started.
Yeah, I'm jealous. We've been working for decades to have our Emancipation Day recognized, and it's still not the national holiday that it should be. So that's happy post Juneteenth, and we're celebrating with you. I've got a lot of family down in the States, all over New York, Florida, Atlanta, California. Yeah. We split up. Some came to Canada, some went to the States. So yeah.
Bernadine, would you like to start with a question first?
I would. First off, I'm so impressed by your victory. When you said that part of your platform was diversity and daring, it sounds very spirited and inspirational. And frankly, I was very amazed that you got elected. What do you think was the key to your success in running a successful campaign for the national leadership?
Oh boy. It's a lot of it isn't me. It's if I would just identify one thing, I would say that it is that we managed to bring a group of people together who really believe that something that had never been done before could be done. Whenever you're the first to do something like this, it actually takes that. It takes people believing that something they have never seen done before can be done this time. And that was a big thing for us. We had a group that grew, but that stuck there from the very beginning, even when it seemed that it wasn't going to happen, that we could never get enough volunteers, that we could never raise enough money, that there was no way that was going to happen. They somehow continued to believe. And from that, I think it inspired others who were attracted. And also there's just a moment sometimes where people say it's time, it's time for something different. It's time to make a change. I was running just around the time of George Floyd being assassinated in the States, and that flowed all the way into Canada. And I think there was also a recognition about that. That people need different kinds of leadership. So I would say that if you can find those true believers, that anything is possible, and you can build a whole movement off of even just a few people who believe at the beginning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McPherson, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just really inspiring just listening to you. When you talked about the emancipation and stuff, growing up in America, I would have never thought that. I would have never thought any other country could identify with America, So we are really together in this, like all around the world. It's really eye-opening, and, that's something that, should be taught in schools as well. I started digging into my DNA and my lineage. And one thing that I learned is that I come from a lot of countries. And that was due to slavery. We was taken all across everywhere. And the women was used as sex slaves. And that's how we became, mixed. So I do have family that, went to Canada. My great grandmother fled to Canada when she was pregnant, so she can be free, and her, baby can be free. So that just kind of ties it all together of, why she went to Canada, because they was already, free before that. So it's just, wow, it's incredible. Moving forward, how would you proceed with the because I know here, I could bring awareness to the fact that that all this happened, and try to push for a curriculum that in our curriculum, but how would you move forward, in your position to bring awareness to the next generation and so forth?
Yeah. In every way possible. It's a real mix. Everyone, the key is for everyone to know that whatever their passions are, whatever their talents, that there is a way for them to contribute. My sister is an artist. She's done theater. She's a producer. She's an actor. She's a creative person. And she has done, certainly more than me to bring awareness to that part of our history that you described and that we were talking about. Every year she has a big event called Free Up, which is all about Emancipation Day. Last year it was carried on our national broadcaster, national public broadcasting station. She does events in schools. She uses her talent as an artist to bring our stories to life and to bring our history to life. And that is as much of an important contribution than anything that I do. We all have our different roles to play. She can get people inspired and educate them in a way that that everyone can feel like they can connect with. And then my job, and she gave me the job, by the way, she said to me, I want you to make sure that the Green Party introduces a petition calling for Emancipation Day to be a national holiday. That's your job, and then my job will be to spread the word, on social media, on Instagram, in the streets, in our street festivals, all of that. So we all should feel that whatever it is that we do, that there is a way that we can spread the word. And that's really how it happens. I know that we have social media now, but ultimately someone that telling you a story themselves about something like this is very powerful, and you're much more likely to remember it. So I would just say, by any means possible, in every way possible, all the time is how we get our own history shared and make sure that big parts of it aren't erased. I feel like if we talk long enough, maybe we can find out that we're related. I mean, it is like that, as you told that story very well, because that's my story too. My family's from the Caribbean, but people think that the Caribbean is Black, and it is now. But all the Black people that are in the Caribbean were brought there as slaves. All of us, we are not the original people, the original inhabitants of those islands. So we had a lot of our history erased all over this world, and it's really going to be up to us to build it back up together again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Great answer. And great questions. I was reading the article, and it says, Annamie says, Justin Trudeau's no feminist. You want to elaborate on that? And
oh boy.
Just
You're getting the news down there, eh? Well, it was I stand by my statement, because it's you all will know that the number of barriers that people of color, that Black people, that Indigenous people have to overcome in order to achieve just the same thing as others, that they're high, and there's many of them, and you get the feeling sometimes that just as you have are past the last one, or what you think is the last one, that another one gets thrown up in front of you. And that is really, when I said that is really how I felt, that a person who has said that they are an ally, that they are there to help to deconstruct those barriers, said, oh, no, sorry, don't get me wrong, there's, I'm throwing up this one because it's in my interest to do so. And so that is, that's hard, that's hard. And that is not what allyship looks like. Allyship is a recognition that you or historically have your people have contributed to a certain set of unfair barriers, and that you are going to help personally bring those down, that you acknowledge your role in bringing those down, not building them up. So, and then some people say, and you'll hear this, Jennifer and Bernadine, you'll definitely hear this. People will say, well, that's just the way that the game is played, And then my response to that is, well, who created the rules of the game? and whose interests were those rules designed to serve? And then also, how is that game working out for us? I mean, is this game working out well for everyone? So yes, but anyways, okay, it's good to know that our news trickles down to you in the States. I mean, we always follow what you do, but I'm glad to know that you follow what we do as well.
Well, anytime we have a first or somebody who's we have a major Black leader basically in Canada, so we have to, pay attention to what's going on up there.
Thank you very much. It's appreciated. Absolutely.
And I know
you're a big inspiration to us, a big inspiration. Mm-hmm.
And can I just follow that up with, how else did George Floyd impact Canada, the assassination of George Floyd?
It provoked question. Well, first people came out in the streets all over the country, even in the smallest little towns. You had people organizing marches and protests. People were absolutely, they were there with you, in spirit. They were there. And it also provoked questions. It was an opportunity for me, for instance, because I was running for the leadership at the time that it happened. It was a chance for me to say to people, please know that it is not that different here. That we believe that it is, but here are the statistics that Black men in Canada are 3 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white person. Indigenous people, it's even more shocking. I mean, almost half of the women in our federal prisons are Indigenous women. I mean, it is, yes, and you're depending on the city, you're 4 to 5 times more likely to be shot and killed if you're a Black or an Indigenous person. So it was a great opportunity for those of us who are aware of that we have our own challenges, to say to people, well, let's look in the mirror. As we're looking to the States and sending solidarity, let's look in the mirror and talk about the work that we have to do here in reforming our own criminal justice system and dismantling systemic racism. So it really provoked, not just in the United States, but all over the world. It provoked those kind of conversations. And we have laws now on the books because of what happened in the United States and the movement that coalesced around George Floyd's assassination. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know you don't have much time, but I'll let Bernadine and Jennifer get these last questions in.
Great.
I'm going back to the political side of it again. Do Black people feel that they have an opportunity for political diversity in Canadian government? Do they feel an allegiance to simply one political party?
That is an excellent question. And, there again, last summer, more and more there were writers and, let's say, political activists who were putting out pieces, opinion pieces and whatnot, and being interviewed saying, it's really time for the Black community to know what their vote is worth, and to really ask the tough questions before they hand away their vote. There was the perception that the vote is being given away too cheaply, and always to the same people who aren't necessarily doing all that they should with it. In our case, most of us, it's changing now, but for a very long time, most of us came from the Caribbean. That's where most of the Black diaspora in Canada came from. We have the Black, let's say, Indigenous population, Black people who came over hundreds of years ago and intermarried with the Indigenous population. We have those who fled slavery as well. So we have some of those, but the big bulk of us came here in the 60s and 70s. And so yes, the people who brought us here, that's the saying, you vote for the people who brought you here. And that was one particular political party. It's kind of like the Democrats in the sense that that's almost always the party that we have historically voted for. And you vote the way your parents voted because they voted for that party. but younger people are starting to wake up and starting to say, wait a second, I can make up my own mind about this. And if I'm going to vote for a party, it's going to be because they're reflecting the issues that matter to me. And so there's a detachment that's happening. And I will say again, that events in the United States last year and seeing all of the new Black people being elected at every level of government for different parties and as independents and all of that has really helped us to see that something different is possible.
So we have a question from Jubilin from the United States, from the Green Party Black Caucus, wants to know, how can the Black Caucus support you from the United States? And I think they've been looking at some articles they've been reading. Oh,
thank you. Just asking means so much, and thank you for that. There's always social media knows no borders, and so even though I am personally, I'm trying not to read anything on social media. My son always sends me the messages of good wishes. I feel the support. Just hearing what you've said, I feel the support, and this is a difficult time, but I think that it is one that I want to do my best to overcome, because no one ever said this was going to be easy. No one ever said it was going to be easy, and I've seen enough of what has happened to other leaders in other places to know that sometimes winning is just the beginning of the journey and the difficult steps that you have to go through. So you hold on as long as you can, and I'm hoping that I can hold on so that I can do some of the good policy work that I came here to do, because it's really about that for me. I'm definitely not in this for the fame. I think Bernadine and Jennifer, the thing that you're gonna miss the most, or maybe you already miss, at least I do, is just not being able to just walk out my house anonymous. It's something that I am not crazy about. So believe me, that's the least of the reasons I'm in politics is the recognition. It's really about the work.
Agree. And Jennifer, if you had a last comment or question.
I was gonna ask, how do you, when people say that they're fed up and, stuff like that, and then there's other people who are just like, whatever happens. Do you kind of feel like when people get fed up, then that's when we're starting to turn to politics now, because we're just so fed up that's the final thing?
That is a good question. My sister asks me that a lot. She has gone back and forth between feeling fed up and then feeling like everything has to change and everything's going to change. It's usually the people that are fed up the moment that they decide that things have to change, that things really change. In other countries where green parties have done well, it's usually where people have gone from just feeling fed up. Maybe they've stopped voting. They just don't think anything's going to change. They don't see it worth their time to invest in either becoming involved in a party or going to vote or being engaged in the community. And then something happens to remind them why actually it does matter. Even as fed up as they are, it actually matters if they do something. And then they're ready for a change. And, countries like Germany and New Zealand, countries like Sweden, Ireland, France, over the last 5 years or so, 5-10 years, those countries have changed dramatically and have elected a lot of Greens because people are they're just, I'm fed up, so I have nothing to lose, so let me try something different. And they've been really happy. Every time that has happened so far, the Greens that get elected, they stay elected. They usually increase their percentage of votes every time. And so I think it's the same thing really here. And I feel like we saw some of that in the last presidential election, in the last election of Congress people. that people just said, I'm so fed up that I'm definitely going to take a chance on something new because there's nothing to lose. And I know what I'm getting from the other people already. So be ready for it and keep laying the groundwork for that. And those moments can appear out of nowhere.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out with us today and coming to talk to us in the States. Is there any last words you would like to say? And if you wanted to give out web addresses, any contact information, any events, online events that us in the States can attend in any way we can support.
Thank you for that tip, because usually my son, I have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old, great guys. Usually my older son, though, usually around now, he goes around the back of the screen with a sign saying, please tell them about your social media. Because I always forget. I actually never even had a social media account before 2019. So I keep forgetting. So that's something people can do if they want to follow us. They can follow my social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Facebook, we often have live events. When we're talking about a policy issue, we always try to invite experts. So for instance, we had one not that long ago about decriminalization. You know, the Green Party of Canada is calling for all possession of drugs to be decriminalized, because we know that saves lives. And you know, we have health experts and coroners and chief medical officers all over Canada now who called for decriminalization. So when we do that, we invite we usually do it live on Facebook so that whoever wants to check it out can, and if they can't, then at least the video is there later. So if you're interested in seeing anything more about the policies we've been talking about, there are a lot of videos on Facebook.
Awesome.
You know, yes, and so I'll be tracking all of you as well. And this just really feeds the soul, I have to say. You know, being with all of you, I'm rooting for you, and I will say that you should remember that we are here also. Whatever we have that we can share is yours as well. Any of our tips, our training, resources, we're here to support you in getting where you need to go. So please reach out to us, and we will always be happy to hear from you.
Awesome. We look forward to have continuing this relationship with the leader of the Green Party of Canada and the Green Party of Canada. So hopefully in a couple months we can regroup and do this again.
Wonderful, with pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yes, with pleasure. You know, reach out, and I'll definitely reach back, and maybe sooner rather than later we can even do it in person. You know, as I said, I've got a lot of family all over the place, so I never need an excuse to come down and visit them. All right, thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Jennifer. Bye, Bernadine. Take care.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
And that was the leader of the Green Party of Canada, Annamie Paul. Coming back to the United States, we have Jennifer McPherson. She's running for school board here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And we have the chair of the Harris County Green Party in Texas, Bernadine Williams. What were you guys' thoughts on what you just heard?
I was just so impressed that she got elected. In the first place, I was glad that she was very open and straightforward about how the race relations were in Canada. I never really thought much about the slave history of Canada. I'm glad that as a Black elected leader of a party that diversity remains a priority of hers, that she still has her own agenda. Because so many of us, when we get into certain offices, we forget about the rest of our people, the representation that they need, and the resources that need to go into our communities.
That's right. Ms. McPherson?
I was just amazed. It just gives me hope. Because, you know, like I said, I didn't know that Canada had those race issues that's very similar to America. So it just gives me hope, and I just know to keep going and never to give up. And that's just a constant reminder.
And what another thing that stuck out to me is a couple things did our contribution or time to run, where they want people of color or basically black women, black men to run for office. A couple years ago, they had something like that up here called EPIC, elect people of color, was that acronym, and it was kind of effective here in St. Paul. Um, and then she talked about grinding us away, how the political process can take a toll on us, and that's why it's important for us to have, I think, to have a support system. Then to hear about tuition free, how the rise of schooling is going up in Canada and things, and then the rise of drugs when she was talking about big pharma and things like that. So we're that was awesome. Do you guys have any more comments about that? Because we're going to talk about some issues that are going on. Go ahead, Bernadette.
I'd like to be able to duplicate in the United States the victories that they're having in Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. You
You
know,
know, to
I think
borrow their roadmap for achieving that.
the Green Party National Black Caucus is going to be important to that. So, as the co-chair of the Green Party National Black Caucus, we're going to be trying to convene that discussion on how we can get more people like Jennifer and Bernadine to run for office. We just had a big Juneteenth celebration. Ms. McPherson, you were at the rally, but Bernadine, you're down in Texas where it all started. Can you just talk to us a little bit about how do you feel about it becoming a federal holiday?
That's interesting. I sort of feel like it's a distraction from the reparations movement, and also it's evidence that we are indeed gaining steam and traction on this issue nationally.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the presidential elections last year, many reparationists were able to move the dial on that to actually making that central to interview for all the presidential candidates.
Absolutely.
But I miss most of the fun.
Go
I miss
ahead.
most of the fun for Juneteenth. I was actually campaigning for a candidate in a nearby town. Unfortunately for Texas, Juneteenth was also runoff elections. So that was a distraction, and so many people just did not even know that elections were happening.
Mm,
I felt like it was an empowerment for our people. It was a candidate who supports reparations, a black candidate who supports reparations. Um, Early in the day, there was an event in another nearby town, Sugarland, over 95 graves that had been found.
wow.
This mass grave on the site which adjourned a prison. And for those of you who don't know it, when the slaves were free, they weren't immediately free. You know, they worked very hard to keep us in a state of slavery.
Right.
Once you leave the plantation, guess what? They threw you in jail or to one of the working penitentiaries. So when they say, oh, well, these were prisoners, we don't mean that they were convicts. These were people who were held as slaves because they came up with any and every excuse they could to keep our people impoverished and in a state of servitude.
Wow. And I think people, and they still do that, work hard to keep us in poverty and in a state of servitude. And I think it's really, that's why I think it's really important for us to be on code and be united. I know we all have differences and things like that, but at least that's why I think reparations is so important. Not the we're due, is owed, but it gives us something as a people to rally around, something to focus on. Like we haven't, I feel like since the civil rights movement, we haven't really had a rallying call in the black community for us to focus on, or something for us to really fight for. Um, Politically, like reparation, and now that we've been able to politicize reparations or make it a political issue, I think um, it helps us with that. Ms. McPherson, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, going to the plantations, a lot of people don't even know that after slaves was free that they had to go back to the plantations if they couldn't afford to pay for their groceries.
Mm.
And some slaves was there until after late into the 1900s. So um, I always tell people, yeah, they told the last slaves in Texas in 1865, but it went on, well into the 1900s. So there's people still around that knows a slave or was a slave or, you know, knows that there was slaves still around. So there's still people that tells the stories.
Yeah, grandfather was not a slave, but he grew up picking cotton here in Utah.
Wow. See, and that's what, and people don't really, and that's why people talk about slavery was so long, long, long ago. But we're here, Bernadine, you're like your family, you have a grandpa that was picking cotton. Miss McPherson, you know people who were on plantations up into the 1900s. So, and then after slavery, there was convict leasing, then there was Jim Crow, then there was separate but equal, then there was mass. Now we're dealing with mass incarceration. We're dealing with the George Floyd era. So, um, part of set, part of, go ahead.
No, it's just all the same thing to keep our people in chains, keep our minds in chains, keep our bodies locked up, provide a source of revenue for white people. There are some towns where the mainstream income is from prison.
Yeah. And
All, yeah, all the way from the courthouses to the private prisons to the lawyers and the prison guards.
yeah, and that's the prison industrial complex, or
The
um,
entire economy around prison and prison labor.
so we had a place here called Appleton Prison, like that, where it basically, I don't know the exact city, but it's up north Minnesota, and that basically was the employer for the whole city. That's where people, so they had a vested interest in having that prison open because that would create jobs for the people who live in that town, and the people who would be locked in that prison would look like me, or you guys as sons and stuff like that, or children. So um, go.
I just want to say about Juneteenth, it's good that it's a holiday because that means that they do acknowledge us as free. Um, I'm trying to keep a positive, outlook on it, and hopefully that would stop some of the police brutality. I know it's not going to change it overnight, but maybe now it would make a cop think twice about it because hey, these people are actually free. And then also, the emancipation came before the promise of reparations. So maybe this is a step towards reparations. I'm not saying that's 100% true. Like I said, I'm just trying to stay positive. So, you know, um, Kamala Harris, she was talking about the LIFT Act when she was running for president. And she was saying that it would be geared towards Black people. But of course, it would be for everybody in America because that's just how, our country is set up. So, if we start hearing things like that, then we know what direction that they're going into. So I'm just going to try to stay positive about it. But it could also be a distraction because, Biden has his history, but also it's a sign of growth as well because we did have a Black president and it wasn't a holiday when he was in office for 8 years. So
No doubt. And I think even with reparations,
If you
this
can hear me, I've lost the signal.
I can hear you. I think another thing with reparations is going to be important for us as a community and as people to keep the pressure on politicians and letting them know this is what our demand is right now. And if you're not supporting that, we're really not going to be rocking with them like that. So at the federal level, Joe Biden has written a lot of executive orders, but most of those executive orders haven't really helped Black people. So excited about Juneteenth. Think that's a step in the right direction, but it definitely needs to be followed up with some tangible actions like reparations, or even signing the George Floyd Act into law, an executive order on that, or the Eric Garner Act, something that just like lets people know. And that, I think that's what you guys kind of spoke to earlier when she talked about being more careful with our vote and who we vote for and things like that. So just making sure that they're that we're getting, before we even vote for them, we know that they're going to come in fighting for us on day one.
Absolutely.
Right. They need report cards. They need checklists. And we need to decide what is our vote worth and vote smart. Why do we vote for people over and over again who are not with us, even though they look like us?
Yep, can you say that again? You had went out for a sec.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying that the ones who are not for us, who do not score well on our report cards, our checklists, those are the candidates that we need to be voting out of office, even if they look like us.
Yeah, and that's because you're right. The status quo has a scorecard, right? And usually, those of us who really care about Black people and our community, we will score low on their card because we're not going to follow their what the status quo wants to, basically keeping us down, grinding us out, keeping us in poverty. So we're not really with that. So we're going to score low as candidates. We will score low on their scorecard. The status quo agenda is to keep us in poverty. So that's why they're not talking about reparations. They're not talking about certain things in our schools or signing the George Floyd Act into law. So we need to have a scorecard that says, do you support the George Floyd Act? Do you support reparations? Do you support housing for the American descendants of chattel slavery? Do you support free tuition, universal basic income? And if they score low on those cards, then we can't support them. And that's how we have to start moving and doing that political education in our community too. So recently, I don't want to take up, we just started doing these surveys for reparations. And it's really getting out, talking to people. And that's that's a big help with doing political education. Some of the questions that are on there, it talks about the racial wealth data. And then I'm seeing brothers read it. They're like, for real? I'm like, yeah, that's the data, man. And then it just gets the conversation going. Sometimes it makes it longer for the survey to be filled out because they'll get halfway through it and read something and be like, oh, hold up. Or it sparks something that done happened to them in their life dealing with slavery or racial discrimination and things like that. So I'm really excited about the process that's happening here in St. Paul with reparations, and that we can start, that it helps with our political education also.
I have a quick question for you about the survey. Okay, so when people are doing this survey with you, are they feeling motivated to take action and to engage politically, or do they feel overwhelmed and that they can't do anything?
Well, actually, they're excited. So one thing, the survey is directly from the city of St. Paul. So when they're like, okay, my city, the city that I live in, is talking about reparations now. So that gets them excited. The first page of it asks your political affiliation. And today I would say I filled out about 15 of them. None of them said I'm with the Green Party, I'm with the Democrats, I'm with the Republicans, I'm an independent. But these were all Black people though. But none of them are saying that they're politically affiliated. But after we left, they were excited to do the work. And it's like, it's sparking something inside them. It's making them think about themselves and who they are and what they went through. And not just like, oh, I may have, some money in the bank or I got on some new shoes. But once you read what the racial wealth data, today I was watching people once they got to the racial wealth data. And it kind of woke them up, and by the end they were ready to do more. So yeah, my answer to that question would be yes. And we're at the last couple minutes, so I wanted you guys to close us out with some last words.
Well, I just want to say, when you go vote, take it serious. Research your candidate. You don't have to vote per party, and you don't have to vote just because that's your friend running. So just do your own research, and because it's important for your community, and outside your community as well. So take it serious.
And also go to jennifermcpherson.org and support her campaign. She scores high on my scorecard. And Bernardine, do you have some last closing words?
Let's keep out there. Let's stay focused. Our communities have to set priorities and stick to them, and we have to be demanding. It is not, we don't need to feel guilty for asking for the things that our communities need, that our communities have a right to expect. We have to get out there and we have to motivate our people to a stronger position politically. We've got to get them out of this mindset of, oh, well, I'm not interested in politics. Well, gee, I wonder who put that idea into their head and made it so pervasive in our communities. No, everything that's impacting your life directly, all the things people complain about day in, day out, year after year, more often than not, have a political connection. And your political apathy is not doing anything to help the community. As a matter of fact, it just keeps setting us further and further behind. And we have to figure out a way to communicate this to our people. And we have to get them to a point where they want to take political action for themselves. And they have to start thinking critically. That's why the issue of supporting public education as an institution is so important. We have to be active in these schools, get our kids back into liberation schools. Because we cannot keep sending our children to public schools to be educated by the enemy and expect them to turn out right and to have the proper mindset. We're sending them to school to get traumatized.
No doubt. And I think we should have a conversation about liberation schools and what that looked like, and just the education of the psychological development of the Black child is really important. And that is, I think, with Ms. McPherson's race coming up, I think that'd be a good conversation for us to have next week, if you guys are up for it. And we can bring in some more people too.
I'm up.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us for this historic conversation tonight. I had the honor to speak with 3 powerful Black women in the global green movement. Annamie Paul, the leader of the Canadian Green Party Federation; Bernardine Williams, chair of the Harris County Green Party, the biggest county in Texas; and Jennifer McPherson, school board candidate. She did really good in the last election, and we think we're going to get her in November. So we know we're going to get her in November.
Yeah.
We'll be talking to them again in the next week or so. And thank you all for tuning in and listening to this great show. If you do see the survey, if you're in St. Paul and you see me out with the survey, please take it. It's not going to take too much time, and read the informational sheet that comes along with it. Thank you for tuning in. We'll check back in with you shortly. All right. Peace.